So this video is not like my normal videos. It was just one I wanted to do for fun because I was looking through my seeds because it's cold outside and I realized I have a lot of dwarf ones. And I know sometimes people struggle about what to grow hydroponically, especially if you have systems that don't have a huge amount of grow height, which not all of them do. So I thought it would be fun to grow all of the dwarf varieties that I have to kind of show you guys what's out there. There's loads more out there. These are just the ones that I have. And so that's what we're going to do because it kind of made me smile. And that's good enough for me. If you're new around here, then hi, I'm Kiri, a self-proclaimed micro-homesteader. And on this channel, we talk about all things micro-homesteading, from growing indoors hydroponically to growing outdoors in the garden, and other ways that we can become more self-sufficient and less reliant on the grocery store. And today, I'm about to grow me some tiny plants. First one we're going to do is the mini Siam tomato. This one is from Rise Gardens. So this is a little teeny tiny tomato plant. These guys grow to about 7 to 9 inches is what they say. I haven't grown this one yet. This is my first time trying it out. I do also have another tomato that I'm going to grow that I have grown many times before. This is the orange hat tomato from Baker Creek. These guys are 6 to 9 inches. So just because this one's small, don't think that you're not going to get many tomatoes off of it. I've grown this twice before hydroponically, once in my personal rise garden and once in my AeroGarden sprout, and I was getting like 30-40 tomatoes off of it. Bacon also loves these. She destroyed the plant that was in my sprout, like destroyed it. The pod was pulled out, it was on the floor, there was not a tomato in sight, so they're bacon approved. I'm also going to do the mini bell pepper mix. These ones, it shows you all the different colors on the front, but I have found that really what you get is one of the colors. So I have grown, the last one that I grew ended up being the yellow. So we will plant one of these and see what we get. These ones do get a bit taller. The peppers are very small, but so you have to probably prune this one a bit. I did grow it in this AeroGarden sprout, and it was fine, though it did end up getting above the lights because I got sidetracked and I didn't prune it. So do better than me. Kale. So this is a dwarf Siberian kale. Dwarf, maybe a bit of a stretch. If you've grown kale before, you know those plants can get pretty stout. So while this is smaller than other kale, it's still not that small, but it's a dwarf, so we're gonna give it a try and see how it does. And I'm trying to learn to love kale because it's good for me. Then we have these Tom Thumb peas. Now I have grown peas before in the AeroGarden farm, and it was an unmitigated disaster. There were peas everywhere. So this is a dwarf variety. I'm hoping this will go better. So one of the things that made it hard growing the peas as well in the AeroGarden was, if you see the hole on that, it's just a wee hole. So normally for bigger seeds, you're supposed to cut down the side and put them in, but it's still a tight fit. So the main difference with the Rise Garden pods is they're very large, way bigger than the AeroGarden. So more surface area, plus they have a divot. You're not actually like shoving the seed down into the grow sponge. I just like these better. It's going to work really well for big seeds. So that's what the Tom Thumb is going to go in. I mean, they're all going to go in it because I'm growing in the Rise Garden, but whatever, you get the point. Next, I have 2 dwarf lettuces that I want to grow. This little gem lettuce, and all of these are pretty much, well, it says right on there, Baker Creek heirloom seeds. Not sponsored. I am just obsessed with these guys. I just got the whole seed catalog, which was like an inch thick. I had a video on that. I will link it up above if you want to look through it, but I love, love, love these guys for seeds. This is where I get all of my heirloom seeds from. These are a romaine lettuce, and they're supposed to be quite small, so we'll give those guys a try. And then the other one that I have is these ones, which is a Tom Thumb. And if you're wondering why you heard that before, because these are a Tom Thumb too. So I guess it's just to mean the tiny. It's a bigger head. It's not tight like the other little gem. I have grown this one before. They're adorable. And we will see how these grow. Next, we have these tiny Hedoo bok choys. These things are tiny. Like, they're actually that small. Like, they're adorable. They're perfect if you want to just throw some into a stir fry. Definitely not the most efficient way to grow this by doing it in the Rise Garden, because I'm going to use an entire pod here for one. Not what I would necessarily recommend if I was going to grow bok choy indoors hydroponically. I would opt for a bigger variety. I like the, I think it's called Painted Lady. I think that's what it was, or Purple Lady. I'll have to check, but it's dark purple and the stems are green. Anyways, it's gorgeous and you're going to get a bigger return on your investment. But seeing as this is a tiny video, we're going to do the Hedoo. And then we have two herbs. So I have this dwarf lemon cilantro. I have not tried this. If you are team cilantro tastes like soap, then this will definitely not be for you, but I love the stuff. So I am going to give this one a try. It says it has a subtle citrus twist. So we'll see. That one is going in. And the very last is this basil, which is the Greek dwarf basil. So those are all the tiny things that I'm going to grow. So top level of my rise garden. The next thing we need to do is get these guys started. So I have my nursery here. I've already got all the baskets in there. They're just clipped into the growing surface and you can fit 12 in here. So it's perfect to do like one layer of the garden. And the reason that you're going to use the nursery is because then you can just use plain water. We don't want to get nutrients in here when they are tiny. It's not good for the seedlings. So I will get this filled up. I'm going to put it up on the top level of the rise garden and then we will start popping all the seeds in and putting it into the app so I don't forget what I planted where, because that is extremely likely. And especially because I'm doing like 2 tomatoes and 2 lettuce and there's some multiples that you wouldn't necessarily know which one's which when they start growing. That's what I'm going to do. And yes, they look like a rotisserie container. I'm about to grow me some tiny plants. So the mini Siam can go in first. Just gonna push that out of the way. We'll put that in the back. So if you were using all of the rise garden pods, then you don't have to worry so much about what's where because they have the helpful stickers on them. But because for the rest of these, I'm going to be using the seedless pods, I'm going to need to keep track of what is where. So the seedless pods do not have the foil on top. I am not going to put foil on these while they're germinating. I'm just going to leave them in here without foil, and also because there are no nutrients. And the reason for the foil is we want to prevent light getting in, because if you have light, water, and nutrients, then you run the risk of algae. Because there are no nutrients in here, I should be good, and that way it'll just be easier to get them started. Once I move them over into the actual rise garden, then I will put some just aluminum foil over them. Okay, so there's no good place to put the camera, so I am just going to get all of these seeds in here, and I'll be back in a minute. One thing I want to mention about cilantro is what you would probably consider the seed is actually more of a seed pod. And see that one that's broken? If you carefully squeeze it between your fingers, you can actually break it apart into 2 halves. That will help increase your germination. So if you've been having a problem or thinking you just can't grow cilantro or can't get it to germinate, it might just be that you need to crack the seed pods. Okay, so I have them all in. I have the little gem here. Then the Tom Thumb, basil, don't have the jelly on them yet. Same thing that you would see on a chia seed, that's totally normal. The cilantro pod that I cracked in half, 2 of the mini bell pepper, 1 of the Tom Thumb pea, I have 2 of this Dwarf Siberian kale, 3 of the tiny Hedoo bok choy, pretty sure there's 2 in there of the mini Siam, and then 2 of the micro hat tomato. I usually, as a general rule, like to do 2 seeds and then you can thin once they get a little bit bigger and you can tell which one is the strongest one. Exception is going to be the pea because there's just not room for 2 of them. So hopefully that one will germinate. And it's just kind of a little insurance policy in case you put in 1 and it didn't germinate, then you'd have to start all over again. But this way you've got 2 chances. So I'm going to top up the water on this and then we'll close it up and just leave it here and we'll check back in about a week. All right, so it's been about 8 days now and things are really getting going in here. Everything has 2 sets of leaves, well, with the exception of those peppers, which I'm not sure exactly what they're doing. But things are looking good, so we are going to start moving these guys into the actual garden. In the app, I'll just put it up on the screen, it's showing that it's time to do that. So take off some of these covers, and I'm going to think where I want to put things. So I want to keep the 2 tomatoes together. So we'll put the tomatoes probably here, and I think I'm going to put the other one at the back there. So this is the mini Siam I'm putting in the back, being careful not to pinch any of their little roots. Basil is one that does well with tomatoes, so I'm going to take my dwarf Greek basil, and oops, I don't have a hole ready. We will pop that little guy in there. And then what else do we have? We have my lettuce. My peppers aren't doing much. My cilantro is going kind of squirrely at the back. Pea, and there's the bacon. You just busted in here, bacon? Well, hello to you. Yeah. Is this boring you? Well, I gotta go back to planting. So we have the pea, we have the kale. So I think I'm gonna put the lettuce in the middle. Probably do a lettuce here. Keep the one at the back. And then we will do the other lettuce over here in the front. And then we'll do the pea here. Oh, he's got a big root, so we'll just be careful putting that guy in. So we still have the kale to deal with. I'm just going to check in the app to see which one's which. All right, so it's been 22 days and we have some serious growth going on. I added one of the supports for the peas because even though they're a tom thumb and a small one, they still have the tendrils and they seemed like they would appreciate somewhere to climb on. Lettuces are looking good. And I just want to call out there, see, that's algae. So for the other ones, I have put foil around them, and I just wanted to kind of show you guys why that's important, because if you don't, in a hydroponic environment, algae forms when you have water, nutrients, and light. And in this case, without the foil, we have all three. So the algae is forming on the top. So what I'll do on this one is I'm going to cover it up with another piece of foil, and then that should take care of that. It's the reason that when you get them, say from Rise Garden, they come with the foil on. I have seen seedless pods that didn't have the foil, but if that's the case, you can just use, or what I do is I just use some aluminum foil just to cover it up. We'll check back in a little bit and see what else is going on. These guys here, the two tomatoes, should start having some flowers soon because they are seriously itty bitty. It's day 34, checking in, and we have some food that is growing in my dwarf plants, and I just want to show you because I'm pretty excited. It's looking pretty good. All right. The kale is getting big. There is some dwarf cilantro under there, but it's very tiny. The peas, I put them on my little rise trellis, and we've got some of the little tiny tom thumb peas. I think I saw 3 of them, and there's like flowers all over it. So that is pretty exciting. We have the little gem lettuce, and then we have the tom thumb lettuce. Edges on the one are getting a little crispy there. I need to get a fan on here. My little tiny bok choy. All right, so we're gonna harvest this little guy. Look at that, the tiny Hedoo bok choy. Not a good use of an entire pod, but damn, that's cute. That's a beautiful little bok choy. Have some dwarf Greek basil, and look at this on the micro hat tomato. There are already 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 flowers with more. Oh wait, wow, there's more. There's so many on here. And on the mini Siam at the back, we have more flowers as well. So I am pretty happy with the variety in my dwarf little garden I'm running right here. We'll give it a little bit more time. I'm going to get the fan on for those crispy edges on the one lettuce, and I will check in with you guys probably in another 30 days, and hopefully we'll have a little bit more tomatoes to show. One thing to note though, tomatoes grown hydroponically take absolutely forever to ripen. So we'll probably see some tomatoes in 30 days, but they're probably not going to be ripe. Another thing you want to do is just give your plant a gentle little tap, and this will help to make sure that the pollen is getting in between the male and female parts of the flower. You don't have to do this, but especially inside, and because I don't have the fan on yet, which I should know better and should have on, it just helps to increase pollination because tomatoes have everything they need in the one flower, but you know what? It doesn't hurt to help them along. Okay, guys. Day 50. Things have definitely bushed out in here. We have a bunch of tomatoes on the orange hat here. The front, this is definitely the smallest of the 2 plants. And back there on the mini Siam, it has a good load of tomatoes. And I'm just making a habit of coming by and giving it a little bit of a shake gently just to increase the chances of fruit setting. The basil has definitely been trying to go to seed, so I'm just kind of coming in and pinching it out. The Tom Thumb is a beautiful little butterhead lettuce over there. The little gem, it's not so little, it's kind of taking over. We have some peas. I've been kind of snacking on these. Kale is reaching a little bit further. Unfortunately, we had a sacrificial lamb over there with the cilantro. It just got shaded out by the kale. I probably should have put that in the front. But overall, for my growing dwarf plants experiment, we're doing pretty good. We have reached day 70 in the rise garden of growing all of these dwarf plants, and it's a little bit crazy over there. So I'm going to go ahead and harvest the kale and chop it up and freeze it to use it later on. Okay, having cleaned out the lettuce and the kale, you can see some amazing tomatoes back there. They do take a long time to ripen when grown hydroponically. Basil smells amazing, that's getting a bit tall. And my other tomato plant. Finally, on day 74, we have some tomatoes that are ripening. This is exciting stuff. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and now you're feeling a little bit more confident that the top of the rise garden isn't just for leafy greens. Feeling more confident in branching out into some more dwarf plants to see what you can actually grow on that top level of the rise garden. If you're growing dwarf, then you really don't need a lot of grow height in order to grow some awesome food indoors, in winter, or at any time during the year. If you're looking for more content on rise, you can check out this playlist over here. And if you're curious about the Aero Garden, you can check out my playlist up here. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy the little things and go out there and make food grow. Bye, guys.